13 years ago, the night was supposed to be magical. The sky, clear and infinite above the woods of Silver Pines, Oregon, was set to host a rare lunar eclipse, the kind that paints the moon in deep, rusty red. Families gathered on porches, children clutched binoculars, and even the usual silence of the forest seemed to hush in anticipation. But for the McKenna family, that night would become a living nightmare. Lily McKenna was 10 years old. Bright, curious, and bursting with life, she had a fascination with the sky. Her older sister, Sarah, remembered how Lily would drag her out to stargaze, talking about the stars like they were old friends. On that night, June 21st, Lily was especially excited. "Mommy," she whispered as she pointed upward, "look at the moon." That was the last thing anyone ever heard her say. The backyard was still. The wooden porch swing creaked faintly in the breeze. Sarah had just run inside to grab a blanket for her and Lily. Their parents were in the kitchen arguing quietly over bills. When Sarah returned not even 2 minutes later, Lily was gone. No scream. No rustle in the leaves, no snapped twigs, just silence, and an empty patch of grass where her sister had stood. Neighbors joined the search. Flashlights swept through trees and creeks. The police arrived within the hour. The entire town turned out. But as the blood moon reached its peak, there was still no sign of Lily. And then, almost as suddenly as she had vanished, the moonlight returned, pale and cold. The eclipse ended, and so did the search for that night. Before we dive deeper into this chilling mystery, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Stories like this one will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. In the weeks that followed, the McKennas unraveled. Their mother, Ellen, once cheerful and nurturing, stopped leaving the house. Their father, David, became a hollow version of himself. Sarah, just 17, went from big sister to guilt-ridden recluse. She blamed herself. Had she taken too long? Did she miss something? Could she have stopped it? The police worked every angle. They found no signs of a struggle, no footprints leading away, no fibers, no blood. Not even the dogs could catch a scent past the backyard fence. The only thing left behind was Lily's stuffed bunny, Ginger Snap, resting perfectly on the porch swing, as if carefully placed. That detail haunted Sarah the most. Lily never went anywhere without it. The town whispered. Some said a drifter had been seen nearby. Others blamed coyotes or a freak accident. A few leaned into local legends, eclipses and portals and ancient things that walked when the sky turned red. But the case went cold, and Sarah's life froze with it. She left Silver Pines a year later, moving to Portland to escape the shadows. There she tried to build something normal, a job as a freelance journalist, a small apartment, occasional therapy. But every year when June approached, she felt the pull, the weight of something unfinished. She kept the case alive in her own way, collecting every article, every interview, every photograph. Her wall, covered in maps and string and notes, became a timeline of obsession. Yet for 13 years there was nothing. No new leads, no closure. Just a hole in the world shaped like a little girl who once looked up at the stars and believed in magic. Until now. Because on the eve of the 13th anniversary, Sarah received a message, anonymous, no return address. Just one line on a torn piece of yellowed paper slipped under her apartment door. Check the hollow tree when the sky turns red. The handwriting was shaky, the ink smeared, but the words were clear. Sarah froze, heart thudding, mind racing. She hadn't heard the phrase hollow tree in years, not since childhood when Lily used to tell stories about it. A twisted old oak deep in the forest, gnarled and rotting where she claimed fairies lived and secrets were kept. Sarah tried to laugh it off, maybe a cruel prank, maybe nothing at all. But something inside her stirred, a familiar ache. The same feeling she had that night under the eclipse. The same silence, the same dread. And the next lunar eclipse? It was only 2 days away. She didn't know what she'd find. She didn't know if she was chasing ghosts or finally waking one up. But Sarah McKenna was going back to Silver Pines, and this time she wasn't leaving without answers. The days after Lily's disappearance blurred into a fog of grief and desperation. Silver Pines transformed from a sleepy town into a place haunted by searchlights, police radios, and silent prayers. Volunteers gathered at dawn, fanned out in rows, and called her name through the thick Oregon woods. Some swore they heard faint laughter. Others said they felt watched, but every path led nowhere. The forest behind the McKenna home was dense, layered with moss, ferns, and secrets. Dogs tracked Lily's scent to the tree line, then stopped, confused, whining, turning in circles. It was as if she'd stepped into thin air. That detail made its way into every report. Disappearance under unexplained circumstances. But to Sarah, it felt more like something ancient and personal, like the forest had taken her. Psychics came. One held Lily's bunny and said the girl was not far but not here. Another claimed the child had crossed into the in-between. The police dismissed them. Desperate families, they said, will cling to anything. But even some officers grew uneasy. Sheriff Dalton, who led the original case, retired early and never spoke publicly about that night again. The community tried to help. Meals were delivered, flyers were printed, candlelight vigils lit up the square. But support waned with time. Weeks turned into months. Leads dried up. The McKennas were left in silence, staring at an empty chair at the dinner table. Sarah couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house became a possibility, every gust of wind a whisper. She started recording everything, her thoughts, her theories, every article and clue. She filled notebooks with timelines, sketches, and questions no one could answer. Why had Lily's bunny been left behind so deliberately? Why were there no signs of a break-in or struggle? Who left the back gate open? Then there was the moon. Sarah couldn't forget it. The eclipse had been perfect, deep red, hanging low and heavy in the sky. And Lily had been mesmerized. She'd said something just before vanishing, something Sarah only remembered later. "It's opening." She wrote it down in the corner of a notebook and circled it 10 times. Her parents didn't handle it well. Their mother, Ellen, stopped talking about Lily entirely. The sound of her name caused her to flinch. David, their father, grew withdrawn. His job at the mill slipped through his fingers. He started drinking alone at night, staring at the woods with vacant eyes. Once Sarah caught him whispering, "Bring her back, take me instead." Sarah, left to pick up the pieces, dropped out of her first year of college. She took odd jobs, avoided friends, and shut down any talk of moving on. To her, time had stopped at 10:47 p.m. on June 21st. Her sister was not gone. She was missing. And missing meant maybe. One night, about 5 years later, Sarah went through one of Lily's old sketchbooks. Most pages were filled with normal things, flowers, animals, stars. But the last few were different. Drawings of a red moon, a girl standing alone under it, strange symbols and figures, tall faceless shadows with long fingers, and doors, many doors, drawn with thick black ink. Some were open, some were not. One door had something written above it, "The Between." Sarah stared at it for hours. She didn't believe in ghosts, not really, but she believed in patterns, she believed in instincts, and every cell in her body screamed that this wasn't over, that there was more to find. Still, no one listened. Not the detectives who'd filed her sister's case under cold, not the therapists who suggested letting go, not the friends who slowly drifted away. So, she stopped asking. Years passed. Birthdays came and went. Her parents eventually divorced. The house in Silver Pines was sold, and Lily's room was emptied, except for one thing: the stuffed bunny, Ginger Snap. Sarah took it with her, unable to throw it away. She kept digging, quietly, persistently. Any missing child case with strange details, any local legend that lined up. She even mapped out past eclipses and found something that made her stomach turn. In the last century, during every full lunar eclipse over their county, at least one child had disappeared. Not always reported, not always connected. But there, buried in forgotten papers and faded ink. She started compiling her own database, 13 cases, spread across decades, all children, all during lunar eclipses. Some were written off as accidents, others never made headlines. But Sarah saw the thread. She followed it in silence, knowing the world had stopped listening. Then, 13 years after Lily vanished, the message came. A piece of paper slipped under her door. Check the hollow tree when the sky turns red. The paper trembled in her hands. The handwriting, barely legible, looked rushed, almost desperate. Her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't heard the words hollow tree since she and Lily were kids, making up fairy tales in the woods. Sarah folded the note carefully and placed it next to Gingersnap. For the first time in years, she packed a bag. She was going back, not just to the town where it all began, but to the silence, the shadows, and maybe, just maybe, the truth. Silver Pines hadn't changed much. The town, nestled between thick forest and the slow-moving Granger River, still looked like a place that had been left behind by time. The gas station sign still flickered. The diner still had the same green booths. But to Sarah, everything felt smaller, shrunk by memory and distance. The drive from Portland took 4 hours. She didn't speak the entire way. Her fingers tightened around the steering wheel when she crossed the town limits. The air felt heavier. The trees leaned in closer. It wasn't paranoia, it was memory. Everywhere she looked, she saw traces of that summer. The path they used to ride bikes, the library Lily loved, the old wooden bridge where they used to play pirates. She didn't stop at the old house. Someone else lived there now. Instead, she checked into the Pine Haven Motel. The same floral curtains, the same burnt coffee smell in the lobby. Her room overlooked the woods. The anniversary of Lily's disappearance was tomorrow. Sarah took the note from her bag and unfolded it again. The words were smudged, but still readable. Check the hollow tree when the sky turns red. She didn't know who had written it, or how they knew where she lived, but the mention of the hollow tree was too specific to be a coincidence. As kids, she and Lily had made up stories about that tree. It was deep in the forest behind their backyard, a monstrous old oak with a split trunk wide enough to crawl into. They used to pretend it was a portal to other worlds, guarded by invisible creatures. After Lily vanished, Sarah had returned there once. The tree was just a tree, empty, cold. She'd never gone back. Now the forest called to her again. That evening, Sarah walked through town to clear her head. People stared. Whispers followed her. She didn't blame them. In a place this small, memory clings like fog. At the general store, the cashier froze when he saw her name on the card. "You're her sister," he muttered. "Yeah," she said, not offering more. On her way back, she was stopped near the sheriff's station by a man in a crisp uniform, late 30s, clean-cut, tall. His eyes studied her, cautious but not unkind. "You're Sarah McKenna," he said, more a statement than a question. She nodded. "I'm Miles Harrow, deputy back when Lily went missing, now sheriff." Sarah remembered him vaguely, young, quiet, fresh out of the academy. He'd cried during the second week of the search. "I heard you were back," he said. "Didn't think you'd really come." "Got a reason," she replied, folding her arms. "You hear something new?" She considered her words. "Maybe. Nothing official." He frowned. "If someone's messing with you, I want to know." "I don't think it's a prank. You still digging into this?" "I never stopped." He sighed. "Sarah, it's been 13 years. We did everything we could. You stopped, I didn't." A silence stretched between them. Then, to her surprise, he nodded. "Look," he said, "I still got the files. Haven't touched them in years, but they're there. If something turns up, even a whisper, come to me first." She didn't thank him, just nodded and walked away. The next morning, Sarah rose before the sun. Fog clung to the ground as she hiked into the woods. Her boots sank into wet earth. Branches tugged at her sleeves. Every step deeper felt like peeling away time. She found it after an hour. The hollow tree. It hadn't changed. Towering and split down the center, its bark gnarled and blackened with age. Moss crept along its sides like veins. The inside was dark, hollow, and smelled of damp decay. She crouched and studied the base. Dirt, stones, leaves. Then she saw it. Scratched into the bark, just to the right of the hollow, was a symbol, a spiral, intersected by a vertical slash. It was crude, almost childlike. Sarah's chest tightened. She'd seen that symbol before, in Lily's sketchbook. She ran her fingers over the carving. The wood was old, but the scratch was newer. Months, maybe weeks. Not ancient, not weathered. Someone had been here recently, and they knew. Sarah stepped back, heart pounding. The forest was silent. No birds, no wind. Just that awful, pressing quiet she remembered too well. She turned and hurried back toward the trail, each footstep crunching louder than the last. Something had changed. This wasn't memory anymore. This was something moving, something real. The night of the eclipse arrived like a breath held too long. The sky darkened in slow, deliberate strokes, stars blinking to life one by one. Sarah stood at the edge of the forest, heart pounding, flashlight clutched tight in her hand. Her breath came in visible clouds. This was it. 13 years to the night. She followed the trail from memory, guided by instinct more than sight. The forest felt alive, watching. Every twig snap made her pause. The moon high above began its transformation, silver turning copper, shadows swallowing its glow. By the time she reached the hollow tree, the blood moon hung fully above, casting a dim, eerie light. The forest around her fell unnaturally silent. Even the wind seemed to have left. Sarah knelt by the roots. Her hands shook as she brushed aside dead leaves and dirt, searching without knowing what for. Something drew her fingers deeper into the soil, almost like gravity bending her will. Then she felt it, smooth, cool, out of place. She pulled it free. A shoe, tiny, pink, clean. Lily's. Her breath hitched. She turned it over. The fabric was unworn, laces intact. No rot, no mold, no signs of time. Then she found the second one, 2 shoes perfectly preserved, as if they had just been slipped off. She staggered back, heart racing. This wasn't possible, not after 13 years, not exposed to the elements, not here. And yet, here they were. Real, tangible. Proof. Sarah clutched them to her chest, her mind racing with questions. How could they be here? Who put them there? Were they meant to be found? Behind her, leaves rustled. She spun around, nothing. But something was wrong. The forest felt different now. The air was thick, like the world was holding its breath. Her ears rang with a high, almost inaudible tone. The light from her flashlight dimmed suddenly, flickering without cause. Then came the whisper, not from around her, but inside her. A child's voice. Faint, familiar. Sarah. She dropped the flashlight. It hit the ground and rolled into the dark. Her pulse thundered. She turned in every direction. Nothing. But she had heard it. She knew that voice. Lily, she whispered. Silence. Then another whisper. He watches. She stumbled back against the tree, clutching the shoes like a lifeline. She wanted to run, to flee the forest, but her legs wouldn't move. It was as if the very ground held her. Suddenly, light burst across the trees. Headlights, voices. A flashlight beam cut through the dark. Sheriff Harrow emerged from the trees, his expression sharp and confused. 2 deputies followed. "Sarah!" he called, rushing toward her. "What the hell are you doing out here?" She couldn't speak. She just held up the shoes, his eyes widened. "Where did you get those?" he asked. I found them, right here." One of the deputies took them with gloved hands, examining them. Harrow looked like he'd seen a ghost. These can't be real." "They're hers," Sarah said. "They're Lily's. Look at the brand, the style." "I remember when she got them, she was so proud." "But they're new." "I know." They stood in stunned silence. The woods remained quiet, almost reverent. Harrow signaled for the deputies to bag the shoes for evidence. "I'll send them to the lab," he said, his voice hushed. "We'll run DNA, check for prints." "But if what you're saying is true—" "I'm not saying anything yet," Sarah interrupted, her voice shaking. "But someone wants me to find this. Someone's trying to tell me something." Harrow looked up at the moon, now fully eclipsed, its crimson hue casting long, unnatural shadows. "Let's get you out of here," he said. before whatever did this decides to come back. Back at the station, the shoes were secured and the paperwork began. Harrow worked late, unusually quiet. Sarah sat in the corner, mind spinning, the sound of Lily's voice still echoing in her skull. That night, sleep refused her, and when she finally drifted off, the dreams returned. A red sky, black trees, a little girl running barefoot through a misted forest, and behind her something tall watching. The next morning, Silver Pines felt colder than usual. The clouds hung low, heavy with moisture, and the streets were almost empty. Sarah barely slept. Her dreams clung to her like smoke. Lily's voice, the blood-colored sky, the tall figure at the edge of the forest. She walked to the sheriff's station before sunrise. Harrow was already there nursing a coffee, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. He motioned her in without a word. The shoes had been sent off for testing. Results would take time, but the preliminary photos were spread across the table. Clear, undeniable. They were children's shoes, pink canvas, untouched by time. Sarah stared at them for what felt like forever. "How?" she asked finally. Harrow shook his head. "I don't know. No prints, no wear, no decay. No animals touched them, no weather damage. If they were buried there for 13 years, it's impossible." "It's not just the shoes," Sarah whispered. "It's what I heard, the whispers. I heard her voice, Lily's voice." He paused, uneasy. "Are you sure? She said my name, said he watches, like a warning." Harrow leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "I've seen a lot of strange things in my years, but nothing like this. I want to believe you, I do. But Sarah, you think I'm losing it. No, I think maybe something is happening that we don't understand." Later that day, Sarah began talking to people. She revisited neighbors from 13 years ago, knocked on old doors. Most had moved on, avoided the topic, but one remained, Marta Bell, the town's oldest resident, blind, quiet, nearly 90. Her mind still sharp. Marta invited her in with a knowing smile. "You saw the shoes," she said without being told. Sarah froze. "How do you—" "The hollow tree doesn't give without reason. It's waking up again, you feel it, don't you? In your bones." Sarah nodded barely. "I lost someone too," Marta whispered. "My brother, 1947. Same woods, same moon. We were told to forget, but I never did." Sarah's pulse quickened. "There were others?" "Always been others. Every time the moon goes red, the forest reaches through. Some children go missing. Some return changed." "Changed how?" "Quiet, pale. They don't sleep. They don't cry. They draw things they shouldn't know." Sarah sat there, stunned. Why hasn't anyone said anything? Because it sounds insane. Because it's easier to bury pain than dig for truth. Marta reached into a drawer and handed Sarah a worn envelope. Inside were faded newspaper clippings, headlines from decades ago, small and overlooked. Children missing, strange sightings, all on eclipse nights. "The between," Marta said, almost reverently. "That's what the old tribes called it. A thin place, not quite here, not quite gone." Sarah returned to her motel with the clippings, her mind racing. She spread them out on the bed, comparing names, dates, ages. Every piece formed a terrifying pattern. Always a child, always under the red moon. That night, the dreams returned, only more vivid. She saw Lily again, standing in the woods barefoot, her dress torn, her hair longer than it ever had been. Her eyes looked the same, but older, tired. She reached for Sarah through a veil of fog. "Help me," she whispered. Behind her, the forest bent unnaturally. A shape moved, too tall, too thin, limbs too long. No face, no sound, just presence. Sarah woke gasping, drenched in sweat, and on the mirror, written in condensation, were two words: "Find me." She hadn't turned the shower on. The mirror had been dry. She stood frozen for minutes, pulse hammering in her ears. Then she turned and looked at Gingersnap, the bunny sitting on the table since she arrived. Its head had turned, only slightly, but enough to make her stagger back. Sarah grabbed her notebook and wrote everything down. Not just the dreams, but the voices, the mirror, the memories. She went through Lily's old drawings again. They weren't just the scribbles of a child. They were messages. One drawing, barely noticed before, showed a crooked door in the side of a tree. Beside it, a spiral with a line through it, the same as the marking on the hollow tree, and next to it, a girl standing in shadow. The caption below, written in a shaky, childish scrawl, "He waits between." Sarah's fingers tightened around the page. Something was coming, and it wanted her to keep going. Sarah returned to the hollow tree just after dawn. The fog was thick, curling low over the mossy ground, muffling every step. She carried Lily's sketchbook in one hand, the page with the spiral symbol tucked into her jacket. Her other hand gripped a small garden trowel, fingers numb from the cold. She crouched near the roots, digging with trembling determination. The soil was soft but resisted her, dense with roots, rocks, and something else. The deeper she went, the more wrong it felt, like the earth itself didn't want to give up its secrets. Then her trowel hit something hard. She cleared away the dirt, breath caught in her throat. It was wood, old, splintered, but unmistakably shaped. A door. About the size of a crawlspace hatch, embedded into the base of the tree. Covered in moss, ringed with that same spiral symbol, carved over and over like a ward. She reached out and touched it. The wood pulsed faintly under her fingers, like it was alive. Then a flash, a vision, maybe a memory. Lily, reaching toward the same door, eyes wide with fear. Sarah staggered back, breath ragged. Footsteps crunched behind her. "Didn't think you'd come back out here alone," said a voice. She turned sharply to find Sheriff Harrow, hand resting on his belt, gaze fixed on the ground. He knelt beside the exposed door, eyes narrowing. "What is this?" "I don't know," Sarah said, but Lily drew it, before she vanished. He examined the carvings, lips tightening. "This isn't just some old root cellar. It's wrong. I can feel it." "I think it's a door," she whispered, "to somewhere else." "Another place?" Sarah nodded. She called it the Between. Harrow didn't laugh, didn't scoff, just stared at the door for a long, heavy moment. "You're not crazy," he said finally. "I've seen things I can't explain, and lately I've been dreaming of her." "Of that place?" Sarah's eyes widened. "You too?" He nodded once, slow. "Every night since the shoes." Neither of them said the word insane. They didn't have to. They returned to town together, bringing photos and soil samples. Harrow said he'd contact someone who might know more. That someone arrived 2 days later. Professor Nathaniel Calloway was a retired folklorist, once affiliated with a private research institute in Montana. White hair, tweed coat, leather satchel full of journals. He had been following eclipse patterns and missing person clusters for over 30 years. "I received your sheriff's message," he said, voice low and precise. "What you found fits a pattern older than this country." Sarah laid Lily's sketchbook on the table. Calloway studied it with interest. "Children sense things we don't. Their minds are more porous, more available." "Available to what?" Harrow asked. Calloway's eyes met Sarah's. "To the Between, a realm that overlaps ours during liminal events, eclipses, solstices, blood moons. Some cultures call it the veil, others the threshold." He paused, turning to the photo of the door. "Spirals represent openings, gates, but they must be drawn to protect, not invite." Sarah's stomach sank. "Lily drew dozens," she whispered. "She must have known." Calloway nodded grimly. "It's likely she saw it coming. Children taken into the Between aren't gone exactly. They exist outside time." "Trapped. Can we open it?" Sarah asked. "Can we get her back?" Calloway was silent for a long time. "Yes," he said, "but only under specific conditions. The next lunar eclipse, your final window, is in 6 nights. Sarah leaned forward. "What do I need to do?" Calloway opened a notebook, revealing an ancient diagram. "The door can only be opened when the moon is at full eclipse. You'll need a tether, something belonging to the one you seek, and—" He hesitated. "What?" Harrow pressed. Someone must be willing to take their place. Sarah stared. "You mean a trade?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Calloway said. "Balance must be kept. One soul leaves, one remains." The room fell into stillness. Sarah didn't flinch. "I'll do it," she said. Calloway closed the book slowly. "I understand this isn't noble, Miss McKenna, it's permanent. I understand," she said, "but she's been there for 13 years, and I'm the reason she's gone." No one argued. Not Harrow, not Calloway. The clock was ticking, and the moon was coming. Lily couldn't remember how long she'd been there. Time didn't move in the between. The sky never shifted. The forest never changed. There was no sun, no night, no seasons, just an endless red twilight that coated the trees like blood on bark. The air was damp and still. The ground breathed sometimes. She had tried to count the days once, tried marking lines into a fallen tree, but the marks always vanished. Or maybe the tree healed, or maybe it was never really there. Nothing stayed, nothing aged, except her memory. She remembered the eclipse, the backyard, Sarah turning to go inside, the moon going red, a low humming, like wind trapped in glass, and then a door where none had been, opening from within the hollow tree. She didn't walk through it. It pulled her. A voice said her name, soft and cold. And then she was here. Lily had wandered for what felt like years. The forest was endless, but not in the usual way. It looped. It folded in on itself. Sometimes she'd see her own footprints ahead of her. Sometimes she'd hear her own voice call back to her from behind. There were other children at first, faces she didn't know. They'd huddled together, trying to stay near the trees with the least movement. But one by one, they disappeared, taken by the keeper. She never saw it clearly. It stayed to the edges, tall, pale, limbs like branches. It didn't speak, but its presence pressed into her thoughts like frost. She could feel it watching, waiting. It didn't come often, only when she cried. So she learned not to cry. What kept her sane was Sarah. She whispered her name every night, held on to memories like lifelines, the sound of her sister's laugh, the way she used to braid Lily's hair, the feel of her hand. It was the only thing that never slipped away. When she closed her eyes, she could sometimes feel warmth, brief, like sunlight through glass. She dreamed of the old world, of bicycles and chalk drawings and birthday cakes. But waking up here was always worse after those dreams. The between punished hope. And yet, lately something had changed. She'd begun hearing things, real things, voices that didn't belong here. A name spoken not by memory, but through the air. Lily. Sarah's voice, not just imagined, clear, calling. Then the wind changed, the forest trembled, and Lily saw something impossible. A sliver of light, not the dull glow of the red sky, but a silver shimmer, moonlight, peeking through a split in a nearby tree. A place where the fabric between worlds was thinning. She ran to it. The tree pulsed, its bark cracking like skin. On the other side, she saw movement. A shadow. A woman. Sarah. "Sarah!" she screamed. The shadow turned. But before she could reach it, the keeper appeared, stepping from behind the trunk like smoke taking form. It didn't move fast. It didn't need to. Lily backed away slowly, trembling, her voice caught in her throat. It didn't speak. It never did. But she could feel its thoughts like a weight in her skull. "You cannot leave." She ran. Behind her, the trees shifted. The ground split. Reality twisted. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. She didn't know where she was going. There were no paths. But something guided her. A pull in her chest, a thread. Sarah. Somewhere, somehow, her sister was near. Not just in dreams, not just in memory. She was coming. Meanwhile, in the waking world, Sarah's body weakened. Calloway noticed it first. Her hands shook. Her sleep became fragmented. Her temperature dropped. When Harrow asked what was wrong, Sarah could only whisper, "She's pulling me in." The bond between them was real, more than metaphor. Calloway explained it like an old tether, one soul tied to another through blood, love, and memory. The closer they came to the between, the more the boundary frayed. Sarah wasn't afraid. She welcomed the pain. It meant she was close, but she also felt urgency. The next eclipse was 3 nights away, and if she didn't find Lily by then, the door might close forever. She stared at her sister's drawings again, memorizing every symbol, every hint. There had to be a way to reach her without losing herself, to enter just long enough to pull her out. But Calloway's warning echoed in her mind. One leaves, one stays. She would do it. She had already decided. But part of her still hoped, foolishly, deeply, that maybe there was another way. That love might bend the rules, just enough. The eclipse began with an otherworldly hush. Sarah stepped into the forest clearing flanked by Calloway and Sheriff Harrow, their faces pale in the dim glow of the blood moon. Every breath sounded too loud, every heartbeat like a drum. The hollow tree loomed ahead, its trunk split wide as if waiting for them. Calloway held a lantern dripping with crimson wax and recited a low incantation he'd transcribed from an ancient manuscript. Harrow adjusted the protective circle of salt at the tree's base. The energy in the air vibrated, making the hairs on Sarah's arms stand at attention. As the moon reached full eclipse, the bark of the tree pulsed, veins of silver light snaking across its surface. The ground trembled, and the split widened into a door-shaped void. Sarah swallowed hard, realizing the final step was hers alone. She clutched Lily's sketchbook and Ginger Snap's worn ear as her tether. Calloway whispered, "Remember, one soul in, one soul out." Harrow stepped back, eyes brimming with concern. Sarah took a deep breath and placed her hand on the glowing wood. Heat rippled through her fingers and up her arm. With a shuddering groan, the door swung inward, revealing a world bathed in scarlet twilight. Trees twisted at impossible angles, their branches reached toward a crimson sky. The ground rippled like water. Sarah hesitated on the threshold. Every instinct screamed to run back, but hope anchored her feet. She stepped across the boundary and felt gravity shift beneath her boots. Harrow's lantern flickered and dimmed. Calloway recited another phrase, sealing the entrance behind her. Sarah watched the world she knew vanish as the portal sealed shut, leaving only the red glow of the eclipse sky. On the other side, she found herself in a forest that mirrored her worst nightmares. Shadows moved just beyond sight. The air smelled of damp earth and something metallic like blood. Sarah called out, voice echoing oddly, "Lily?" The sound seemed to collapse in on itself. Then she heard a small gasp. A child's silhouette darted between gnarled trunks. Sarah ran toward it, heart pounding so loud she thought it would burst. There, crouched beneath a twisted oak, was Lily, 10 years old again, dressed in the same pink dress she'd worn that night. The girl's eyes were wide with disbelief and relief. "Sarah," Lily's voice trembled. Sarah dropped to her knees and swept her arms around her sister. Lily smelled of cold air and forest moss. They clung to each other, tears mingling as they embraced. "I thought," Sarah began, but Lily shook her head. "I knew you'd come." For a heartbeat, time stilled. The red sky above shimmered, and the trees held their breath. Sarah brushed Lily's hair back and whispered, "I'm here. I won't leave you." That tense peace shattered when a shape detached itself from the shadows. The keeper. It stood taller than any tree, its limbs elongated and pale as bone. Its head bowed slightly, long fingers curled like claws. It didn't speak, but its presence pressed against Sarah's mind like a slow, crushing weight. Lily whimpered and stepped closer to Sarah. The keeper advanced, each step silent yet thunderous. Sarah rose, shielded Lily with her body, and stared down the ancient entity. "I offer myself," Sarah said, voice steady despite the fear. "Take me instead. Let her go." The keeper halted, studying her with empty depth where eyes should have been. The air crackled. Sarah felt her bones chill. For a moment, the world trembled on the edge of oblivion. Then the keeper extended a hand, pale and impossibly long, toward Lily. "No," Sarah growled, stepping forward. "I'm not letting you touch her." The keeper's head tilted. Reality warped. Trees bent away, shadows twisted. Sarah reached for Lily's hand, determined to pull her back through the portal. The keeper raised its other hand, and the air snapped like a whip. Sarah heard a voice in her head, cold and distant. Balance. With a final thunderous crack, the ground beneath them fractured. Light exploded from the portal's edge. Sarah grabbed Lily's hand, and together they ran toward the glow, pursued by the keeper's silent fury. As they reached the threshold, Calloway and Harrow's voices called from the other side. "Now go, Sarah!" The world snapped back. Sarah and Lily plunged through the door of the hollow tree, tumbling into the forest clearing as the eclipse began to fade. They lay on the mossy ground, panting. Sarah held Lily tight. Above them, the moon was returning to its normal pale glow. The forest around them trembled once more, and with a sound like ripping fabric, the door sealed itself shut. The keeper's presence vanished, leaving only silence and the faint pulse of the hollow tree. Sarah looked at Lily, unchanged, unharmed. Relief flooded her chest, but she knew the cost had been great. She closed her eyes for a moment, bracing herself for what came next. The world returned in fragments, shadows bleeding into light, the taste of earth on Sarah's tongue, Lily's tiny hand tangled in her own. Sarah's lungs burned as she tried to orient herself. She could still feel the echo of the keeper's presence, cold and expectant, clinging to the edges of her mind. She squeezed Lily tighter, searching her sister's face for any sign of harm. Lily stared back, wide-eyed and trembling but alive. Still the same age. Still the same little girl lost all those years ago. Calloway's voice broke the spell. He rushed to their side, relief and fear warring in his eyes. Sheriff Harrow knelt nearby, jaw clenched tight, his hand hovering near his holster, as if expecting the keeper to follow. The air buzzed with the energy of something unfinished. The blood moon hung heavy above, not yet gone, not yet safe. Lily sobbed and buried her face in Sarah's shoulder. "Don't let it take you," she whispered, voice barely audible. Sarah stroked her hair, her own voice thick. "I won't. I promise." But she remembered the warning. One soul in, one soul out. Balance. As if summoned, the trees at the edge of the clearing bent inward, and the shadows deepened. The keeper reappeared, more substantial now, towering over the hollow tree, the spiral symbols on its bark pulsing with light. No words, just that unbearable weight, pressing down on everyone present. Calloway stepped forward, holding up a page from his journal, marked with ancient wards. "Let her go," he demanded. "The trade has been made." The keeper's faceless gaze fixed on him, and for a heartbeat the air went silent. Then the journal page caught fire, burning to ash in Calloway's hands. Sarah rose, placing herself between the keeper and Lily, voice ringing out clear and fierce. "You don't own her. She was never yours." The keeper did not move, but something shifted. A ripple through the clearing, a tug in Sarah's chest. The portal in the hollow tree flickered open once more. The light inside pulsed hungrily. Sarah felt herself being pulled, the trade unfinished. She clung to Lily's hand, desperate, unwilling to let go, but the force grew stronger. Harrow tried to intervene, grabbing Sarah's arm, but his grip slipped. The world blurred around her. "Sarah, come back!" Lily screamed, refusing to release her sister. Their hands stayed locked together as Sarah felt herself stretched between worlds, the keeper's will like a tide trying to drag her under. Calloway's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and desperate. "Fight it, Sarah! Remember who you are. Remember why you came." For a moment, Sarah's mind filled with every memory, childhood laughter, tears, birthdays, hope. She summoned everything inside her and focused on Lily, the little girl she'd sworn to protect. A surge of heat flashed through her. The spiral symbols on the tree glowed white-hot. The force pulling at her weakened, wavered. She screamed, pouring all her strength into her grip. "We leave together. Do you hear me, both of us? I won't leave her again." The keeper recoiled, its form flickering like a shadow caught in wind. The portal's light grew blinding. Lily's hand squeezed hers with impossible strength. Then everything shattered, a crack like thunder, a surge of wind, the blood moon erupting into white. When the world stilled, Sarah lay sprawled in the grass, breathless. The hollow tree smoked, the door sealed shut. Lily knelt beside her, tears streaming but smiling. Calloway was gone. Harrow looked around in shock. "Where's the professor?" At the base of the tree, Calloway's old journal lay open, its pages fluttering in a breeze only Sarah seemed to feel. She picked it up, her fingers trembling, and found one final note written inside. "The world is built on stories and sacrifice. Remember." A chill swept through Sarah. She realized what had happened. The trade had been made after all. Not her, not Lily, but Calloway. The balance kept in a way none of them expected. Sarah stood, pulling Lily into her arms once more. The sky above lightened as the eclipse faded. The sense of dread lifted, replaced by a fragile peace. The hollow tree, scarred and smouldering, no longer whispered. Lily was free, but Sarah knew they'd left something behind, a piece of themselves, or perhaps the lingering presence of the Keeper forever waiting at the edge of what is real. Yet for now, the nightmare was over. She looked down at Lily and smiled. "We're going home." Returning to the world was like stepping into a story she'd only half remembered. The town of Silver Pines had not changed in appearance, but for Sarah, every color seemed brighter, every sound sharper. For Lily, it was like waking from an endless dream to find the world had moved on without her. People stared at the two of them, some with disbelief, others with awe. Whispers trailed them through the grocery aisles, and the air was thick with questions that no one dared to ask aloud. Lily clung to Sarah everywhere they went, her small hand never far from her sister's. The news spread quickly. Lily McKenna, missing for 13 years, had returned. Doctors examined her, expecting trauma, malnutrition, or strange injuries, but found a perfectly healthy 10-year-old, as if not a single day had passed since the eclipse all those years ago. No medical explanation could account for it. Experts offered theories, but none fit the facts. Only Sarah, Harrow, and the empty place left by Calloway knew the truth. Home was different now. Sarah moved back into her childhood house, the walls echoing with memories and something new, a hope she'd almost forgotten how to feel. The room that had been preserved for Lily was no longer a shrine, but a place of laughter and reunion. Old friends came with cautious welcomes. Some could not hide their discomfort, their belief that this miracle might unravel at any moment. But Sarah refused to let fear define their days. There were moments of unease. Lily sometimes woke screaming, her eyes open but unseeing, her voice speaking words in a language Sarah didn't know. Once, Sarah found Lily sitting on the porch in the middle of the night, drawing intricate spirals on the wood with a piece of chalk, her fingers moving in patterns too old for a child. But as dawn broke, Lily would laugh and run outside, chasing birds, her laughter bright and alive. Sarah learned to accept these echoes. She sat with Lily during the bad nights, holding her close, whispering promises that nothing would take her again. Slowly, life found a new rhythm: schoolwork at the kitchen table, evening walks along the river, the comfort of a world restored, if only in part. One night, as another full moon rose, brilliant and ordinary, Sarah and Lily sat together in the backyard, wrapped in blankets. The sky was clear, unmarred by eclipse or shadow. Lily pointed upward, her voice soft but steady. "It's just the moon tonight, Sarah, nothing scary." Sarah squeezed her hand, relief swelling in her chest. "That's right, Lil, just the moon." They talked about what came next. Lily wanted to learn how to ride a bike again, to bake cookies, to see the ocean. Sarah promised they would do all of it. The world was theirs, strange as it felt, and for the first time in 13 years, Sarah let herself believe in futures. Not everything was easy. Some days Sarah caught herself glancing toward the woods, expecting to see the Keeper's silhouette among the trees. Some nights Lily woke crying for Calloway, sensing his absence in a way she couldn't describe. Sarah kept the old journal, its last message pressed between pages like a pressed flower. "The world is built on stories and sacrifice. Remember." She did. Because every time Lily laughed, every time she called Sarah's name, it was proof that some stories end in return, not loss. And every time the wind moved through the pines, Sarah whispered a thank you to Calloway, to Harrow, to the unknown. The past would never truly leave them, but it didn't have to rule them either. As the night deepened, Lily looked up one more time and asked, "Will it ever come back, Sarah? The red moon?" Sarah gazed at the sky where only the calm, gentle light of the ordinary moon shone down. She shook her head. "Not for a long, long time. And if it does, we'll face it together." The world felt safe beneath that promise. The grass cool beneath them, the stars distant but watchful. If you found this story unforgettable, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more mysteries that linger in your mind. And don't forget to click the video on your screen to unravel the next haunting secret just waiting to be discovered. Because some stories end, but the search for answers never does.